Folks, in this video, I'm going to explain how much farther the stock market is going to fall, at least to the best of my ability, using data, previous histories, and the situation that we're currently in. Right now, the S&P 500 is down just under 20%, the NASDAQ is down just under 29%, and the Dow Jones is down 14.62%. And while these numbers have resulted in a lot of pain and heartbreak and existential crises, mostly from this office, they still aren't crazy, at least not on a broader market level considering the massive amount of inflation we have. Just yesterday, which was the day before today, I showed a chart that Michael Burry posted which shows the trajectory of long-term interest rates and the obvious effect it has on price to earnings multiples, aka the amount the market is willing to pay for every dollar of earnings. And the chart shows that while the Fed was letting inflation run rampant under elevating rates and the overall economy was growing, multiples continued climbing rapidly. But when the Fed finally stepped in under Volcker and got the Volcker special, you had a huge dumping of multiples going from a multiple of around 9 to around 2 to 3 in a very short time period. That's not even considering the drop of earnings that also happened during that contractionary period. This is just the multiple on those earnings that people are willing to pay. So if earnings went down 50% at the same time that multiples crunched from 9 to like 2, ugh, folks, that's not a pretty time. And then after those 1981 heights in interest rates, the Fed embarked on 40 years of easing of monetary policy, dropping rates lower and lower consistently decade after decade, leading to the inevitable fueling of price to earnings multiple expansion that today are well above where they were at much higher rates. Price to sales ratios are even more pumped. Now, in an extremely low interest rate environment where you have nowhere to park your capital and the economy is growing rapidly, maybe these multiples aren't completely insane. Maybe what's insane is how low you had to go in the first place to get them here. But if this dirty red interest rate has to start picking up to levels even half as high as the late 70s and 80s because we have inflation that is at a level that we haven't seen since that period, well then, this certainly has a setup to be quite bloody, doesn't it? So to me, unless a magical deflation fairy comes down from the deflation heavens and deflates our currency and stops the Fed from hiking, well, I just don't see how this is going to be a pretty road ahead. So in this video, I want to walk you violently through the data, the history, and some implications and a projection on how far down we're going to go. I don't ask that you agree with me. All I ask is that you hear out my points and use them as a building block for your own opinion. Also, this video is sponsored by the handsome gentleman over at ZipTrader U and his 4th of July sale. If you'd like to get 50% off our one-time fee for lifetime access to ZipTrader U, type in coupon code America50 before checkout. Aside from our step-by-step lessons, private chat, and a host of other trading resources, you've probably also heard of our daily morning briefings. It's been a tough market, but we have certainly been able to find some good plays. ALNA was another near doubler this morning. We briefed on her at about 24 cents a share after she announced a cancellation of an at-the-market sales agreement, which is an offering of shares, aka more dilution. And because people were thrilled that this was canceled, she ran up all the way to 44 cents, which was like an 83% run. How did I know this would run? Well, I didn't know 100%, but people love canceling of dilution. And considering that we just had our BHAT play from last week end up more than doubling on the same exact news, it made it even more likely that the odds were in our favor today. Now, of course, not all of our plays run, and not all of them are intended to be bullish. The point of the program is to offer a framework to start developing risk management, a clear structure to entry and exit plans, and then also providing the morning briefings to actually give you trade ideas and catalysts to be aware of to practice on. Of course, you are going to have to put work in, but if you do, I think you're going to like what we have for you, especially at 50% off. Coupon code America50, link below. Okay, so let's look back at history. This is a graphic from the New York Times. It shows the S&P 500 over the last 100 years. In gray are bear markets. They labeled bear markets that come alongside the most significant crises. The Great Depression lasted 783 days and knocked down prices 83% peak to trough. The entire market got Cathy Wooded. World War II was 537 days and knocked prices down 35%. The Vietnam War period, bear market lasted 543 days and prices dropped 36%. The oil shock of the 70s lasted 630 days and the S&P 500 went down a whopping 48%. The high inflation and the Volckering and the Michael Jacksoning of the early 80s led to a drop that lasted 622 days but only took the market down 27%. And then the dot-com bust lasted 929 days, which was brutal, and prices went down 49% peak to trough. Financial crisis lasted 517 days and prices went down 57%. The COVID bear market lasted 33 days and prices dropped 34%. And then this current crisis with high inflation and the Fed raising rates has lasted about 161 days so far. Actually, it's about 180 days because this graphic is like a couple weeks old, but it's about 180 days and it's taken us down about 20%. Now, what's freaky is that in this current crisis, you have a lot of remnants of other earlier crises, right? You have the oil shock of the 1970s, which started when Saudi Arabia and OPEC members segmented the oil market by refusing to export oil to countries who supported Israel during the war at that time, which of course included the US and Western allies. Prices of oil at that time went from $3 a barrel to $12, a 300% increase. In comparison, in 2020, the average barrel cost about $41. Now it costs about $110, $111. That's a 168% increase. If you take pre-COVID levels in 2019, that's about a 90% increase. Not as bad as the 1970s, but very, very similar theme. This time around, it's not Saudi Arabia and other Arabic nations segmenting the oil market, but it's Western countries segmenting themselves away from Russia in retaliation for this Ukraine invasion. The next period that is similar is the high inflation and Fed volckering of the economy in the early 80s. The Fed stamps out inflation with unprecedentedly high interest rates, and this results in a slow death of the market, which takes 622 days to bottom, but a relatively modest decrease. And then obviously we have some big remnants of the dot-com bubble here as well. A lot of speculative capital causing companies to factor in years and years of increases. Even good companies had levels of speculation on them that caused their share prices to get valued at an insane multiple. And that's kind of inevitable when you have really, really cheap money, because people have nowhere else to put the money. The money's cheap to take on risk. Why not throw it into a bunch of stuff that's going up? People see that things are going up and they're like, okay, well, I want to throw even more in. It's really quite a fun time when the party's going. But anyways, here's the point. If you want a good guesstimate on how far today's market crisis is going to cause the market to drop, some of the best data we have is in these past three scenarios. But what is hidden here, and the biggest freaky thought in this data set, is that each of these scenarios happened in completely different market backdrops. One thing to keep in mind is that when you look at most charts where they show the last century, you're not looking at a chart with a normal scale on it, but you're looking at one with a log scale, aka the distance between 5 to 50 is shown as essentially equivalent as the distance between 500 to 5,000, which has dire interpretation consequences because this isn't a linear chart, but an exponential one. If you make the chart actually linear, what does it look like? It looks like this. Completely different picture, right? And completely different implications. Trace back the previous decade performance to each of these drops and you'll find a very freaky trend. If you look at the period of time between Great Recession lows to all-time highs that we peaked at a couple days into 2022, we rallied about 587%. Dips like the COVID crisis were smothered over by continuing Fed easy money policies. Now, in the decade before the dot-com bubble peak, returns were about 330%. In the decade before the high inflation and volckering in the 80s, they were only at 72%. And then in the decade of time before the oil shock, we were only at about 51% up. The implication, well, while these crises were long, drawn out, and deeply painful, they came with the backdrop of very modest market performance. If you're up 51% or 72% in a decade and you fall this amount, what happens if you're up 587% in a decade? Now, obviously, when you go up 500% versus going up 50%, going down 20% is a completely different number. But follow me closely. The more that you inflate something, the more air there is to let out, right? Put another way, at lows in the oil shock in 1974, we hit $63.54 in the S&P 500, which took us back to levels that we originally saw in 1962, 12 years earlier, which means 12 years of gains completely gone. Imagine what that would look like today if you had a similar sort of crash. 12 years ago today puts us back in June 2010. June of 2010, the S&P 500 was trading at about 1,064. To get from all-time highs we hit at the beginning of this year to that level, you would need to drop about 78% in the S&P 500. That means that if you were going to have a similar drop to what you had in those days, given how much rapid performance we've had, the S&P 500 would need to drop about 78% total from peaks. Now, folks, don't worry. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That would be far too bullish. That assumes there's still going to be life on this planet. Not with this guy. But the point is, if you look at what a similar crash would look like today versus what it looked like back then, it would be a lot more painful today because of how much we've been pumped. Even if you just compare this to the oil shock or the Volcker days, you'd have to erase many, many years of gains, which would take us down a lot more than we are right now. We have climbed so much in the past decade, and really the last 3 or 4 decades, that any similar comparisons or even half comparisons to periods of time where rates were significantly higher would mean that this period is going to be far, far more severe. Now, the contrarian argument against what I just said is, well, okay, Charlie, if this logic is true, why is it that the dot-com bubble bust didn't erase a full decade of gains despite the massive, massive rally before it? Well, obviously not all crashes have the same cause, right? And thus not all have the same result. But the reason is still pretty simple, and the reason is because interest rates got even lower after that. And in fact, even with those interest rates going lower, the next contraction, the Great Recession, did manage to lose all the gains of the previous bull period, and that was responded to with even lower interest rates, and after that, we responded again with even lower interest rates. So what happens when the Fed, and by extension the economy, actually has to pay for all that infusion and all those dirt cheap rates that we've had the last 4 decades that have bailed us out? Crash after crash after crash. What happens when we have to do a hike like we saw in the 80s, or even halfway like we saw in the 80s, in a backdrop where multiples are multitudes higher than they were back then? Well, what's going to happen is probably something like this. Now, I oversimplified a few things to make a point. Obviously, the economy is different today than it was 40 years ago. In some ways, things are significantly better, as technology has increased productivity and efficiency and the amount of goods and services that we can provide to people. And in some other ways, things are significantly worse. For example, our rapidly dwindling labor force participation rate. But still, think bigger picture here. When you take out all the million different little variables, don't you still see that overall problem that we're facing? If this inflation situation does not go away rapidly, the Fed may have to Volcker us, and even half Volckering us in this kind of environment would be a lot more painful than it was in the Volcker days because of how far we have come. And by sheer extension that we've come this far because of the very, very, very low rates, or at least largely because of them. So now, assuming that you've stacked up on enough canned goods and Jerome Powell, this is transitory dolls to get through the next upcoming apocalypse, well, there is good news. While the Fed may have to break some monetary precedents that they've been following for the last 40 years, much of the pricing pressures that are the problem right now, they have very little impact on. Energy and food prices, for example, the Fed has very, very little impact on, which means that once the Fed has induced a massive recession, an earnings recession in most companies, a consumer recession where the consumer just can't spend any money anymore on anything except for the essentials and maybe a Starbucks biscuit, well, raising rates further at that point would be completely meaningless and would make the situation far, far worse. At a certain point when you're raising rates, you're just making people poorer and you're not actually bringing down prices. Like we were talking about yesterday, and like Michael Burry said, the Fed isn't really trying to fight inflation. It's simply trying to get some elevation in rates to reload that bazooka so that it can come to the rescue when you have a much bigger crisis down the road. By accelerating the pain now before the economy heads off the cliff, the Fed is hoping it'll have the power later to step in as a hero. The Fed isn't helping inflation. The Fed is letting inflation eat the economy from the inside, and then when the economy is on its last legs and dying like a dog, the Fed will say, okay, now it's time to restart you. And they just gotta hope and pray that by the time that happens, the food and energy commodities are cheaper. Otherwise, this is going to be a very, very long process. And if you look at the last 80 years or so of Fed hiking cycles, the median CPI at the first hike was 2.5%, but the median CPI at the first cut was 4.4%. So it was higher than it was when they started the hiking cycle. And in fact, if you look at the data set, every single time the Fed started hiking, the CPI was lower at the start of the hiking cycle than it was at the first cut, with the exception of September 1958 and the Volcker days. And in those two exceptions, they weren't much better, which means on average, you could interpret this data as saying, hey, inflation is actually usually worse by the time the Fed starts cutting rates than it is when they start hiking rates. What gives? Well, by the time the Fed embarks on the hiking cycle, inflation has already run away. It's already too late, and so as they hike rates, it keeps going up and up and up. But eventually, as time goes on, the Fed, or a combination of the Fed and the eating out of the economy from the inside, well, a recession is induced, and the Fed starts cutting rates again well before inflation is anywhere near where they wanted it to be. Why? Well, because the Fed has two mandates. Number one is to ensure the stability of pricing pressure, and number two is to ensure employment, maximum employment. They raise rates as inflation is getting out of control. Inflation starts picking down very, very rapidly. You're in a recession. And then all of a sudden, boom, massive unemployment applications and massive job losses. And so the Fed cuts rates when inflation is still hot, but it's plummeting because now you're in a recession. And then it takes some time for inflation to go all the way back down, but it's going down on its own because you're in such a bad economy. And then all of a sudden the Fed sets the tone for the recovery and then the next bubble. As time goes on and these factors don't improve, the market is going to continue to sell off, and the sell-off could be much, much worse than anything that we've seen in history. But the faster that we get into a consumer recession, the faster that everybody, not just the people who are watching this stuff like a hawk in the financial media, but everybody are like, okay, now I'm kind of worried about my job. People around me are losing their job. People are getting laid off. The minute that that starts happening, that is when you start thinking, okay, wait, if we're getting very, very close to a full-blown recession where everybody's feeling it, that means that the Fed is very, very close to starting to reverse policy, which means the market is very, very close to starting to bottom. By the time the market is bottomed, the economy starts doing terribly, and then all of a sudden people start thinking again, hey, wait a second, numbers are starting to improve again. People are starting to spend again. Hey, these companies with earnings, they're starting to improve. When that happens, oof, you're going to see the biggest rally you've ever seen. But to answer the question of this video, I think the market is right now on the pace to drop more than we've ever seen before in the history of the stock market, based on the reasons that I presented in this video. But that drop will be stopped abruptly by the Fed once again doing what the Fed always does, which is kicking the barrel down the road and once again coming in and saving the day with that bazooka of easy money policy. And then you got the federal government coming in probably with more stimulus. Hell, California is sending people stimulus already. Anyways, that caps off the video. Make sure to hit that ravishing like button and subscribe. If you want to get up to 10 free stocks plus a share of Lucid when you sign up and deposit with Moomoo down below, make sure to do so. If you want to take advantage of our 4th of July sale on ZipTrader U and get 50% off when you type in America 50, make sure to click the link to ZipTrader U below to learn more. Have a good one, folks, and I'll see you in the next video.